A conspiracy against the future. Picture this. The beginning of the 20th century. The entire civilized world is going crazy for rapid-fire, elegant, self-loading pistols. In Germany, the famous Luger Parabellum, elegant as a Zeppelin airship. In America, the mighty Colt M1911, a symbol of the Marine Corps. Even in distant Japan, they are already actively experimenting with their own designs. And what about Russia? In Russia, an officer's holster holds the old, reliable, faithful, but hopelessly outdated Nagant system revolver. 7 rounds. Slow, meticulous reloading. A bulky cylinder. It was as reliable as a hammer, but in an era when the world had switched to automatic rifles and magazine-fed pistols, it was like showing up at a car race on horseback. The army of the Russian Empire, this colossal machine, was stuck in a technological past. And the scariest part was that seemingly no one saw a problem with this. Generals, raised on gunpowder and bayonet charges, looked with distrust at these newfangled self-firers. Why complicate things? Why change what already works? But in this swamp of technological hibernation, there are always those who see further than others. Not generals, not manufacturers, not courtiers. Ordinary people. Lone geniuses. One such person was a young man, a student of a real shul named Pz.Kpfw.38. And his story is not just a tale of another forgotten invention. It is a tragedy spanning an entire lifetime. It is the story of how one man tried single-handedly to change the course of history, and how the system did everything to destroy him. Stay with us. The most intriguing and shocking parts are ahead. We will reveal secrets that weren't in the textbooks. Don't forget to leave comments. Your opinion is important to me. The birth of a dream in an era of madness, the year 1905. The Russian Empire is in flames. Defeat in the Russo-Japanese War, Bloody Sunday, the First Revolution. The country is cracking at the seams. In such chaos, it would seem there's no time for new pistols. But the paradox is that crises are the best time for breakthroughs. When the old crumbles, there is a chance to build something new. It is in this whirlwind that young Sergei Preletsky, whose mind was obsessed with mechanics and design, picks up a pencil and paper. He was not a hereditary gunsmith. He did not study in academies. He was a natural talent. And his genius lay not in reinventing the wheel. No, he was a brilliant adapter. He saw the brilliant solutions of others and understood how to improve them, rework them, make them better, cheaper, and more technologically advanced. For the basis of his first pistol, he took, without exaggeration, the gold standard of that time, a John Moses Browning's short recoil operating system. This system, used in the legendary Browning M1903, was the benchmark of reliability and simplicity. But Preletsky didn't just copy it. He began mentally improving it. He envisioned every little screw, every movement of the bolt, every feed of a cartridge. And so, the blueprints are ready. The young, hopeful designer sends them to the very heart of the military bureaucracy, the main artillery directorate. Go. Imagine the scene. Huge offices with high ceilings, gray-haired generals with medals, smelling of tobacco and naphthalene. And onto their desk falls a folder with blueprints from some unknown youth. What were the chances they would even look at it? 1 in a million. Economic background. Russia, at the turn of the century. To understand the scale of Preletsky's feat, one must look at the country's economy. The Russian Empire was a colossus with feet of clay. On one hand, a rapid industrial growth, railway construction, an influx of foreign capital. On the other, monstrous backwardness in the countryside, low labor productivity, a weak technical base. The state budget was overloaded with military spending and payments on huge external debts. Under such conditions, funding promising but risky private projects in the field of armaments was not a priority. The state preferred to buy licenses or purchase proven weapons abroad. Innovation was the personal business of enthusiasts. But a miracle happened. Preletsky's blueprints were not thrown away. They caught the interest of a man whose name was already renowned in weapons circles, of Vladimir Grigorievich Fedorov, the future creator of the world's first assault rifle. Fedorov saw a spark of talent in these sketches. And he didn't just praise the young man. He gave him a technical assignment, a real challenge, to create a pistol with a caliber of no less than 9mm, a weight of up to 900 grams, and with a magazine for 8 rounds. This was his big break. A pass into the world of major weapons science. Pz.Kpfw.38 threw himself into the work head first. The Russian Browning, a masterpiece in the shadow of revolution several years past. Pz.Kpfw.38 graduated from the Imperial Technical School, receiving a serious education. And by 1911, he presented an improved version of his pistol. This was no longer just an adaptation, it was an independent, mature design. He chose the powerful 9x20mm Browning long cartridge. And here his engineering genius shone through. He came up with 2 things that made his pistol unique: the magazine release on the magazine itself. On all pistols of that time, the release catch for the magazine was located on the grip. Pz.Kpfw.38 moved it to the magazine body. A small thing, you might say, but in reality, a revolution in ergonomics. It simplified and sped up reloading in combat, making the design simpler. The combined rear sight and extractor, 2 parts in one. The rear sight, through which you aim, and the extractor, which ejects spent cartridge case, were combined. Brilliantly simple. Fewer parts meant cheaper production, simpler assembly, higher reliability. Imagine the reaction of the Go Commission. These skeptical generals and engineers held in their hands a weapon that was not just no worse than Western analogs. It was in some ways smarter, more technologically advanced. And they couldn't help but admit it. The official conclusion contained the words "a bold and interesting work." It was a victory, absolute and unconditional. Pz.Kpfw.38 was allocated funding to 100 rubles to manufacture a prototype at the famous Tula arms plant. It seemed that just a little more and the Russian Browning would go into series production. The Russian officer would receive a state-of-the-art weapon, on par with the best world models. My opinion, the genius of simplicity. When I studied the scheme of Pz.Kpfw.38's pistol, I was struck by this very philosophy of simplicity. In a world where everyone strives to complicate things to prove their own sophistication, Pz.Kpfw.38 went the opposite way. He simplified. Every one of his parts was multifunctional. This is the highest level of engineering. He was creating not just a weapon, he was creating an idea. The idea that Russian technology could be not just bulky and powerful, but also elegant, intellectual. But history does not tolerate the subjunctive mood. The year 1914 arrives. The First World War begins. And after it, the Revolution and the Civil War. In the chaos, the fire, the famine and destruction, there was no time for new pistols. Armies fought with what they had. And what they had was the same old reliable Nagant. Pz.Kpfw.38's dream was postponed for 10 long years. Rising from the ashes. The tests that shocked everyone. It's the mid-20s. The Russian Empire is no more. There is the young Soviet Union. The country is slowly licking its wounds, beginning industrialization. And once again, the question of a new army pistol arises. Sergei Pz.Kpfw.38, who had been through all the circles of hell of wars and ruin, did not give up. He managed to obtain a patent and in 1927 presented a new, refined version of his pistol, now for the more common 7.65 by 17mm Browning cartridge. But the world had changed. He had competitors. And not somewhere overseas, but right here, in the USSR. TK Tula, Korovin, the first Soviet mass-produced self-loading pistol, already adopted for command staff. Effectively, the system. Walther Pp. The benchmark German pistol. Reliable, technological, one of the best in the world. It was used as the measure of all things in the tests. Pz.Kpfw.38's chances again seemed negligible. A lone inventor against powerful design bureaus and German genius. It seemed he faced inevitable defeat. And then the tests of 1928 began. This was not just a test, it was a triumph. The star of Pz.Kpfw.38's design. 10 examples of his pistol were manufactured. And they showed stunning results. Simplicity, only 31 parts. For comparison, Korevin's pistol had 56, the Walther had 51. Almost half as many. Reliability, over 270 shots, only 8 stoppages. The Walther had 17, the TK had 9 stoppages in 110 shots. That is, its reliability was higher than that of the recognized German benchmark. Accuracy, the figures were no worse, and in some tests, even better, than those of its competitors. The commission was forced to admit the obvious: Prylutsky's pistol was the winner of the tests. It was simpler, more reliable, and more accurate than its rivals. It seemed that after this verdict, its path to mass production was open. What do you think? Why is the system always afraid of lone individuals? Write in the comments. I'm genuinely interested in your opinion. The deadly verdict. Not recommended. And here begins the darkest and most mysterious part of this story. Despite the brilliant results, despite winning the tests, the final verdict of the Go was like a blow from a cudgel, not recommended for adoption. Why? The official reason sounded like a mockery. The pistol, which had just proven its superiority, was accused of minor shortcomings: cartridge cases ejecting into the shooter's face, a stiff magazine, risk of cutting oneself during disassembly. Let's be honest. This was a brush-off. Even the most brilliant weapon, has shortcomings. They could have been easily eliminated during refinement. Look at the history of the TT itself. It also had a whole host of teething problems that were corrected during mass production. The real reason was different. The system could not allow a lone individual, a private inventor, without affiliation with large plants and bureaus, to surpass the entire state weapons machine. It was a blow to reputation, to pride, to the very system of planning and reporting. Adopting Prylutsky's pistol meant admitting that giant collectives worked less efficiently than one talented person. The system could not tolerate this. He was strangled by bureaucracy. He was told to fix the shortcomings, well aware that he had neither the resources nor the production base for it. It was a death sentence, formalized as a clerical note. The death of a dream by the hand of Tokarev, and the power of the cartridge, but the most crushing blow was yet to come. In 1929, the Army radically changed its requirements. Now the Red Army needed a pistol for the powerful 7.63 by 25 Mauser cartridge, the future cartridge for the TT pistol. For Prylutsky's elegant, balanced design, created for the moderate Browning cartridge, this was a death sentence. They tried to redesign it. But what was the result? A pistol that turned from an elegant weapon into a bulky, absurd freak weighing about 1,300 grams, with monstrous recoil and constant jams. The design, born for one purpose, could not withstand the violent transformation. And here a new hero enters the stage, Fyodor Tokarev. His pistol was designed from scratch, from a clean sheet, for this powerful cartridge. It was not as elegant, not as technologically advanced in terms of the number of parts, but it was simpler, sturdier, and perfectly suited for the conditions of Soviet industry in the late 20s, where the main slogan was fast, many, and cheap. In 1930, the Tokarev pistol, a legendary TT, was adopted by the Red Army. The fate of Prylutsky and his brainchild was finally sealed. Analysis: why did the TT win? From a historical perspective, the choice of the TT was logical, albeit unfair to Prylutsky. Cartridge power. The Army needed a pistol capable of penetrating steel helmets and light body armor at long ranges. The TT cartridge had high muzzle velocity and excellent penetration. Technological suitability for mass production. Tokarev's design was simpler to mass produce on not the most advanced equipment. It was the philosophy of a weapon for millions. The political moment. It was ideologically important to adopt a pistol with a purely Soviet name, Tokarev, rather than one associated with the pre-revolutionary past and the bourgeois Browning. A victim of the era. History lessons we haven't learned. Sergei Prylutsky lost. But he did not lose to Tokarev. He did not lose because he was untalented. He lost to history. His pistol was the creation of an engineer artist, born for a different, bygone Russia to peaceful, imperial one, slowly but surely entering the club of technological powers where elegance, refinement, and intellectual depth were valued. The 20th century demanded something else: simplicity, power, standardization, and total efficiency. He became a victim of war, revolution, and a shift in an entire paradigm of thinking. But his legacy lives on. He proved that Russian weapons thought is capable of giving birth not just to copies, but to original, breakthrough, brilliantly simple solutions. His pistol is a monument to what the Russian weapons school could have been if talented individuals had been given a chance. A monument to a dream that was crushed by the wheels of history. This story makes you think. How many such Prilutskis have been ruined by the system? How many brilliant ideas have we buried under the weight of bureaucracy, someone's ambitions, and fear of the new? This question remains unanswered. Friends, if you've read this far, it means this story has touched you as deeply as it has me. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and write in the comments what other forgotten invention or inventor you would like to learn about. Together, we will retrieve their names from oblivion. Your activity is the best signal for me to continue. Thank you for being with us throughout this entire drama.